Hello and welcome to Cars and Stuff. And you're going to be wondering why this car review video is opening in Hamad International Airport. Well, we're going to do this one a little differently. I happen to be traveling. I happen to have rented a car. This means we have an opportunity to do a review of a car in South Africa. There's many different aspects to this. I'm all by myself. I do not have my trusty cameraman Jess with me. We'll be shooting everything on our GoPros. We've got a brand new GoPro Hero 10, which will be our primary camera, and we've got a very, very exciting addition, a GoPro Max, which is a 360-degree camera. So really looking forward to using that one. But for now, this is a travel vlog, and it will probably, at some point in Cape Town, South Africa, turn into a car review. So, managed to get myself into the business class lounge due to my frequent flyer status, so let's take you on a quick tour of the absolutely spectacular Cat Airways Business Lounge. So, hopefully I'm appropriately scruffy to look like a travel vlogger. Not really generally my thing, but while we have the time, let's talk briefly about the car that I think I'm getting. It should be around a 2019-2020 model Volkswagen Polo. I'm not sure the model, probably the 1400, I would guess. It's going to definitely be a manual. It's going to be nice for a change for us, and it'll probably be white. That remains to be seen. It could actually be something completely different. And welcome to not so sunny Cape Town. We've made it with a fairly uneventful flight. We're now wandering through the airport to go and try and find my rental car. So we've cleared the airport into a dreary and drizzling Cape Town, what feels like a winter's day. I hope I'm looking sufficiently bedraggled enough to pass for a weary vlogger. But we will definitely shoot some random footage of me sitting on my unmade bed pretending to be editing things to put on Instagram later. We'll definitely do that. But now we're going to walk through this really cool tunnel. We'll do that in fast forward as well and go find out what car we're getting. So we have arrived here at Europcar. There are an awful lot of people waiting, so we're just going to have to be patient. So, after nearly an hour of waiting and a 17,000 Rand deposit, I have a car. It's not a Polo. So what I did get was a 2020 model Hyundai i20. Now in Qatar nobody's going to know what that is, but it's a little hatchback, and it's brand spanking new. Let's go do a quick walk around. And because we're in South Africa, we drive on the right-hand side of the car, on the right side of the road, the left-hand side. So apparently my one big suitcase is the capacity of this bag. I could probably fit a cabin bag inside there, but that's about it. It is a very small looking car. Right, we are 10 minutes into this road trip, and yeah, my initial thoughts on this little 2020 model i20. Android Auto is very cool. Let me take these off. The car is quite noisy at highway speeds. I'm doing 100 kilometers an hour now. I'm not sure if you can hear it. So I'm getting a lot of tire noise, and because it's only a 5-speed manual, it's actually running at quite high revs. So at 100 kilometers an hour, it's doing 3,000 RPM, which is number one, not very fuel efficient, but also it's quite noisy. It's pretty peppy though. I still don't know what engine's in it. I will get back to you on that one. I'll look up the spec sheets on it and give you a full rundown of that. We might even post them in the comments. But the driving position, the front of the seat is a little high and it's not adjustable, which is a big issue for a long distance drive. The backs of my thighs are going to get really, really sore. So, but visibility is great. Car goes nicely. But the car is not bad at all. We'll see what the fuel economy is going to look like. At the moment, the trip computer is saying 5.5 liters to the 100, which is nearly 20 kilometers to the liter, which is absolutely brilliant. We'll see if we can maintain that while I'm driving it. It's pretty peppy. Besides the road noise, it's really not bad at all to drive. It seems to be pretty solid on the road as well. There's no wind today. The last time I drove from Cape Town to Mossel Bay, we had a lot of crosswinds and it blew my Suzuki Espresso all over the place. But now, more importantly, we have to stop because any road trip needs snacks. And I am back with all the essentials that you need for a road trip. We have Energade Nachi flavor. That's very important. That's going in the door over there. We have a bottle of water. That's not going in the door. The Energade is going in the cup holder over there, which is useful. Door holder is nice and big as well. We've got Duravost or dried sausage. We've got jelly tots, which are amazing. And then one of my personal favorites, raisin tumbles. Awesome. The car is performing flawlessly. It's a bit noisy, as I said, at road speed. I'm sure you can hear it now using the GoPro mic, which is a wider mic. I'm still getting around 6 liters to the 100 kilometers, which is exceptional fuel consumption because I'm driving it quite hard, 120, 130, and it's doing about just under 4,000 RPM at 130 kilometers an hour. Car's doing well, handles nicely, high speed corners, it's nice and stable. I don't feel it getting loose at the back end, which often front wheel drive cars do. So it's pretty good. Suspension's not bad. You feel the bumps. There's certainly no BMW style damping going on here, but on the whole it's doing well. I think the car is going to perform a lot better in my little town where I live, and I'm really looking forward to putting it through its paces there. It's a very hilly town and the manual gearbox will come into its own. That being said, the gearbox is nice and smooth. The clutch is easy to push in. It's not particularly stiff. Obviously it doesn't need to be a particularly strong clutch considering that it's got a tiny little, and I think this is the 1.2 litre. I will confirm that as well. So I have arrived in Mossel Bay. 4 hours since I left. It was a solid run, 4.5 hours. The car performed admirably. I have to say it, I can't really fault it. It struggles up the hills, it runs out of puff, but it's got plenty of revs, so you can run it up to 130 kilometers an hour in 4th gear. And it's got some go, but yeah, you're not going to be passing too many cars. But as I get into the small urban environment, I can't help but feeling that this car is far more at home here, where I can run through the gears and I can wind it up to 6,000 RPM in first, second and third, and it just does feel like this is definitely its natural habitat. Because this is doubling up as a travel vlog, we're going to talk a little bit about the town of Mossel Bay. My family moved out here 5-6 years ago, but we knew the town well before that, and it is an absolutely fantastic little big small town. Big in that it has everything you could possibly need, but small in that there's no traffic. It is a genuine pleasure. So Mossel Bay's claim to fame, at least from a modern history perspective, was the fact that the original Portuguese explorers looking for an alternative route to the Far East used to use it as a waypoint, and it has a very famous tree which is called the post office tree, where they used to leave mail for ships passing in the opposite direction. And it has grown to a population of just over 60 or 70,000, so it's a reasonably sized town, but it still feels like a small town. I think there's 5 or 6 traffic lights. It's phenomenal. So, let's talk interior. This is an entry-level model, so we're probably not going to be expecting much, but it's still not doing too badly. The most obvious shortcomings are the materials, and that is where you are always going to run into trouble with these cheaper entry-level cars. There is hard, scratchy plastic just about everywhere. And it's not a nice place to sit. It's not a nice thing to touch. Even the steering wheel is not particularly nice to touch. But this is when you get to this price point, this is where they save money. That being said, it does have all the toys. We've got a full infotainment system with a what looks like probably an 8-inch touchscreen. It's pretty responsive. It's got Apple CarPlay. It's got Android Auto. It all works. It's got these wonderful little screen in the center of the dashboard that gives you information like what level your indicator is on. It just kind of flashes up. Sorry, the windscreen wipers. It just flashes up in front of you, so you know what you're doing there. Same thing with your lights. It tells you where you're on. Right. It just flashes up the information and then it goes away again to show you your trip information. Controls all neatly laid out. The gear lever's in a decent position. It works. It all works. It's just very, very cheap. The one thing that I complained about earlier in the drive up was the seating position, and the seats are quite nice and supportive. It's got bolsters here for your thighs and for your hips, but you can't adjust the seating position up or down. So this under your thigh bolster tends to dig into your legs on long trips. But other than that, it's a pretty decent place to be. I can't really fault the ergonomics and the technology. It's just the materials, and then obviously this seating position. But beyond that, it's a pretty decent little car to be in, and considering the price point, which is very, very low, it's great. There's plenty of space. As I say, I'm 6 foot. I've got lots of headroom. I haven't checked the back seats yet. We'll go jump in there in a moment. But for now, sitting here, it's really not that bad. Just, well, cheap, because it is cheap. Often with these smaller hatchbacks, you sacrifice luggage space. And we've already seen that my normal traveling suitcase fills up the boot just about. But what can the i20 do with a full-size cart bag? Maybe people driving hatchbacks aren't playing golf, but this is an important test. As a traveler, you might be renting one. So let's have a look. That actually fitted in quite easy. There's no space for anything else, but I'm quite surprised. That's actually the first time I've done that. I didn't really know that it was going to fit. I had my doubts for the length of it, but well, yeah, it can take a full-size cart bag. Well done. One of the biggest attractions in this entire area is golf. There are a number of top quality golf courses in and around Mossel Bay within an hour's drive. We are going to pop over to the closest course to me, which is actually right behind my house, and go and hit some golf balls on the driving range. That is the Mossel Bay Golf Estate. And their tagline is, you can see the sea from every tee. And I can confess that that is absolutely true. You can. It is a beautiful little links course and an absolute joy to play. So we're off to go and hit some balls. I will catch up with you later. Now it's time to put the Hyundai i20 through its dynamic paces. I said before on the drive up here that the car is probably far more suited to the urban environment than the highway, and that is so far borne out in the last 3 days of driving around here. I've also finally managed to find the spec sheets, and I can now tell you that this is the Fluid model, which is the base model. It comes with a 1.2 litre 4-cylinder engine mated to a 5-speed manual gearbox, and it pushes out a paltry 83 brake horse and 115 Newton meters of torque. Now that might not sound like a lot, but in the first 3 gears, does it really matter? And to be honest, I'm finding it quite nippy in and around town. Where it struggles, and where it will always struggle, is going up hills. And I think what Hyundai has done really well here, and I drove the precursor to the i20 many years ago, the Getz, and it was, well, a fairly floppy econobox. This car is considerably better set up. Some strut up front with torsion bars at the back, but they've managed to tune it to make it really fun to drive. And in a car in this price bracket, that is quite something. So it'll still understeer if you push it too hard around a corner. It's front wheel drive. That's a given. You can't get away from that. But its front end grip is exceptional for a car like this with tiny little wheels. The clutch is very, very light. The steering is light, but relatively precise. There's very little feel. It's an electronic steering rack, so there's very little steering feel, but you wouldn't expect more from a car like this. But it is a lot of fun to drive. Now, the roads have been quite wet, so I haven't really had a chance to push it until now. There's a lot of stop streets in this country. Damping is good. It stays reasonably flat around the corners while remaining quite comfortable. But it's got some go, well, in the first 3 gears, as I said before. And it runs out of torque, unfortunately, in the end. But it's good fun to drive, and I'm really enjoying it. And considering the car that I rented last time was such a disappointment, this is a significant improvement. I think if I were to rent a car like this again, I would definitely put this on top of my list. I originally wanted a Polo, which is the benchmark in this segment, followed by the Fiesta, I would say. But Hyundai's done some great work with this car and is going to be giving those two a serious run for their money.
So, because I'm a super busy, important vlogger now, I have to have the obligatory shot of me doing last-minute edits for the gram, so I can make my 8:33 deadline to post. Otherwise, you know, nobody's going to see it. Okay, none of that's true. I'm just uploading all the footage to the cloud, and Jess is doing the editing. But I thought it would look cool. And now we're going to class it up a little bit by having a champagne breakfast at Betty's Boutique in Mossel Bay. It is a little slice of England on the south coast of South Africa. Let's go have a look inside.
I brought you to this rather dramatic backdrop to talk about probably the least dramatic thing about the 2021 model Hyundai i20. It is, well, see for yourself. We'll start around the front and we'll work our way around the car. I know it's not really fair on the i20 because this is a base model. They generally get better as you go up the range, but this one is pretty boring. And I'm going to start you around the front, which is probably the most interesting part of the car. And down here we've got a really nice little daytime LED running lights, which I discovered only work when you lower the handbrake. And I was trying to shoot a close-up of that earlier. That took a while to work out. Really nice light clusters that are integrated into these creases down the side. The front grille is quite aggressive, and it gets a lot more interesting again as you go up the model range. This fake front splitter over here is superfluous, but I suppose it looks nice. We've got some close-ups of that which we'll cut into, but it's there. We've got some aggressive bonnet creases on it, and all around the front end is by far the nicest looking part of this car. And from there, it starts going a little bit south. They've done their best with the side. We've got a few creases over here which make it look a little bit more aggressive, but these rims, these aren't even alloys. These are hubcaps. They are plastic and they look horrific. The top spec model has alloys, 16-inch alloys that size and with that design, and I'm sure it will look really, really nice. But all round, it's a bit immature. I've noticed quite a few 2020, 2021 models Polos driving around, and they are really slick looking cars. They just look classy. And then there's quite a few Fiestas around, and these are this car's biggest competitors, and they are And the Fiesta is a lot more fun. Whereas this is somewhere in the middle, and I can see what they try to do, but, well, it's just all a bit boring. And not all of it comes together very neatly. And I just don't like these slashes down the side. They look like they're trying too hard. They do integrate into the bonnet with its creases and the front fascia, but just all round, it just doesn't work for me. It does get a little better around the back though. So the rear end does get a little bit better. I really like the fact that they've incorporated the exhaust into the back end, so you can't see it at all. If you're not going to put a nice exhaust tip on the car, don't even bother showing it off. You can see how these creases, I like what they've done here with the black, and you can see how these creases integrate into the slashes down the side, and then they do start making a little bit more sense. This rear diffuser though, why on a 1200 hatchback? I know what they're trying to do, but it's just not necessary. The rear camera is incorporated neatly into the back end, and you can barely see it unless you hunker down low behind the car like this, but it does look quite purposeful from the back. I do like the nice touch of the i20 incorporated into the back lights as a shadow, and it looks really, really neat. So the back end, front end, there was one highlight for this car that really stood out to me, and that is the wing mirrors. They do look kind of floating and really, really classy, so I think they've done a really nice job with that. And I'm fairly sure that's going to incorporate very neatly into the higher spec cars. On this one, it just stands out as looking really, really nice. I'm going to take advantage of another cold and dreary day and a half an hour drive to do something new for the channel that we haven't done with the previous cars. And that's a little pros and cons list. I've now had the car for over a week, and there are a few things that I like and a few things that I don't. So here are 5 things that I do not like about the Hyundai i20. We've talked a bit about the cheap plastics, don't like. We've talked a bit about the lack of power at highway speeds, and it's a bit noisy, don't like. But here's a strange one. If I have a cup of coffee in the cup holder and I try and put the handbrake down, my hand catches on it. This is infuriating. And it's taught me a lot, and I like my coffee, and I generally always have a cup of coffee in the cup holder, so that's quite an annoying one. The other one is my children really like some bassy music, and the sound system is atrocious. The head unit is fantastic, but the actual speakers are shocking. And then the other one that we've already talked about is not being able to adjust the under thigh support, and that is incredibly uncomfortable on longer journeys. But those are relatively minor things, and as a city car, they're not hugely impactful. And you can always upgrade the sound system. Now let's talk about 5 things that I do like. And I'm going to start with my favorite, the driving dynamics. It's not great on the highway. It doesn't have enough power, and it's a bit noisy. But in town, it is a blast. I am so enjoying driving this car in and around Mossel Bay. It is just so much fun. You have to wring the crap out of it to get revs out of it and to make it go, but that's half the fun. You're working through the gears all the time, and you're engaged, and you're part of the process, and it handles beautifully. I can imagine that the 1 litre turbo, the 1 litre 3-cylinder turbo will be even better with the extra torque. So that is right up there. The tech is fantastic. This touchscreen is smooth, it's responsive. The graphics aren't particularly high resolution, but it works beautifully. I just had that one blip on the drive up. All-round visibility is great, no issues there, so it's a pleasure to park, and the tech again helps there with the reversing camera and parking sensors at the back. And there's plenty of space in the boot. I get all my kids' school stuff in there, so as an around-the-town car, it is absolutely fantastic. So there you go, 5 things I don't like, 5 things I do like about the i20. Right, I'm on my way back to Cape Town, and I've just stopped at the top of Salawi's Pass. It is spectacular. I'll cut to that for you. And I just want to talk about the back seat of the car quickly. This is the first time I've jumped in the back seat of it, and it is massive. This is my driving position. I can't even my knees don't even reach the front seat. It's huge. My kids have obviously been really happy in the back here. There's just loads of space. It's really comfortable. The plastics and so on are still pretty cheap, but
look at the headroom. I'm 6 foot. That's really impressive. Well done, Hyundai. I don't know how they managed to create this much space. I guess we've lost it in the boot, but yeah, well done, lads. This thing is massive in the back. There's no split in the rear seat though, so if you want to load anything long, you've got to put the whole seat down. I noticed that was an issue when I had 3 people in the car and 2 sets of golf clubs. So, but beyond that, this is a winner of a back seat. So, right, I'm going to show you the view and then we are going to go give the car back. So I'm almost back in Cape Town, ready to give this car back, and it's done it to me one too many times. There's something that they've done in these cheaper cars with using maybe more cost-effective synchro rings or a poorer synchro mesh system in the gearboxes. But 50 or 60% of the time that I try and put this car in reverse, it does not go into reverse. I actually have to drop the clutch, let the clutch spin again, and now it's in reverse. That is really annoying, but I've noticed it on a couple of, on the Nissan Go as well as the Suzuki Espresso. It must just be a more cost-effective solution, but it's really annoying. So that finishes off my stint as a travel vlogger. I didn't get to do a lot of the things that I wanted to do, but I hope you saw a little bit of Mossel Bay. Maybe you should come visit. I've had a wonderful holiday and I've had a wonderful little car to drive. And on that note, I'll see you back in Qatar.